to the Cult of Domesticity podcast, a podcast about history, true crime, and whatever life brings us. I'm Courtney, and every week I am joined by another fascinating person. Let's see what we're going to talk about this week.
Courtney from the Cult of Domesticity with the Drunk Thunks.
Hi, guys.
Oh.
Bonjour.
Ew.
What the fuck?
Ew.
Shut up, Jake.
Ew.
Hey everyone, welcome to Drunk Thunks. I'm Michael.
I'm Brittany.
Why is she British?
I'm Brittany.
I'm Brittany.
I was just trying to do like loud. Ow.
And I'm Jake, a rockin' and a rollin' all night long.
Fuck, that's a good one.
We've also been here for 12 days. We're locked in Michael's apartment, his poor room. So, what do you guys know about the Great Train Robbery?
Nothing.
It was pretty cool.
Very little. It sounds like it was pretty great.
I know Michael Crichton wrote a book about it.
Was it Michael Crichton?
Yeah.
Oh, he writes a lot of books.
Michael
He
Crichton, I
quoted-
say in air quotes, wrote about a lot of stuff.
Well,
Wrote in past tense. He is dead.
Michael murdered
and he had
him
a
to
movie come
inherit
out.
the
And
title
he had a
of
book come
Michael.
out last
So,
year.
real quick, I'm going off some very base knowledge. I know there wasn't there like the first Western was an old silent film. Wasn't it also called The Great Train Robbery?
Yes, this is not that one.
I was going to say this is the British one, right?
Yes.
That's as far as I know. I've got
So-
nothing else.
I found out about this via the BBC.
thanks, BBC.
They did a 2-part miniseries on this, with the first part being the planning of the robbery via the criminals, which starred Luke Evans, which is why I was bringing up Luke Evans.
Thank you.
And this is where
Body.
I discovered
Face.
Luke Evans.
Right.
Gaston.
He plays the lead, and then the second episode was really the investigation, and it stars Jim Brandt of Harry Potter. He
Yes.
plays-
My man.
I'm going going with Harry Potter.
Who was he in Harry Potter?
The final defense against, or the potions master who replaces Snape, who doesn't
Oh,
die.
Slughorn.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the last book
There's
I
so
read.
many fucking people in those movies that I can't keep
Yeah.
track.
So
Michael, please stop stroking.
Sorry, Slughorn just gets me all worked up.
my audience is going to enjoy those problems. So it's a train traveling from Glasgow down to London.
Okay.
Nothing remarkable about it.
Other than that, it's getting better the further south.
Other than that, Luke Evans is on it.
Luke Evans will meet the train, become best friends.
Run away with the train.
Yes. It's 12 cars powered by a single diesel locomotive, and it's the mobile post office known as the Up Special. So it's carrying postal staff as they're going sort mail and packages en route to London, and they've been doing this for 125 years.
That's a really
wow.
neat system. Like, you do the mail work en route to your
Yeah.
delivery. That's awesome.
It makes sense.
Also, what was the route called?
The Up Special.
Yeah.
I gotta love it. I don't know why it's.
Oh, that
My
sounds...
God, there are
This happens for 125 years until August 8,
1963?
Yeah,
damn.
it's pretty recent.
They
That
thought
night,
they threw him for a loop.
that night it was carrying a large amount of cash in its second car where the registered mail was stored. And it's larger because there was a bank holiday.
Woo!
How British of them.
So people probably be drinking, having a good time, spending all the dollars.
As them British
It cuts
do.
to a British person like, I say, we could buy another
Round.
another
buy the
Pins
next round.
cup.
Oh my god, you know what I can buy?
Right around 3 a.m. near the Bridego Railway Bridge in Buckinghamshire, England, a gang of thieves stole.
Dun dun dun.
Dicks.
They stole 120 sacks of banknotes, equaling anybody want to?
$100 million.
I'm going to say.
Well, it's in pounds.
100 million pounds.
I'm going to say, let's say 50 million. Nope, sorry, 50,000 pounds. It's going to be underwhelming.
I'm going to go for the over-under and say 20 million pounds.
2 million pounds. Remember, it's the 60s.
Okay.
Literally suck my dick. I was the closest.
Which would be about.
I was
By degrees of magnitude, she was.
She said 100 million. You said 20 million?
No, you said...
at 1 million.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
No, yeah, you're by far the closest.
Yeah.
Which would be at the time $7 million, or more than $50 million today from the second car. So.
Yeah, I'd commit a crime for that much.
Oh my
In the 60s? Fuck yeah.
Yeah. What a time to steal, like, $1 million. God.
But everyone's prospects in Great Britain were so good, he said.
I think they had just gotten off rations.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah, no, they had just got off
Unconvincingly.
rations, and then they're about to hit the 70s,
Right.
which aren't great for Britain.
And then
People
Margaret
were-
Thatcher!
People were, like,
Whoa.
considering leaving the steel mill, and then, yeah.
Mm.
Ugh.
So, it took 15 men to pull off this robbery with a couple of accomplices. Let's go through the cast of characters.
Yeah.
So we have Bruce Reynolds. He left school at the age of 14
Hot.
He failed to join the Royal Navy because of poor eyesight. And then
Not
he's like,
hot.
I'm going to become a foreign correspondent. He applies to Northcliffe House, and he gets first employed as a messenger boy, then works in accounts of the Daily Mail. Yes, it's been around that long.
Wow.
Oh, the Daily Mail. Plying us with
Daily-
shit for generations.
Honestly, one of my favorite news sources for funny stories.
At 17, he got bored with messenger jobbing,
Mhm.
and he moved to the Bland Sutton Institute of Pathology at Middlesex Hospital, and kind of started.
That's a jump.
Jake, every time I laugh at a joke now, you are not allowed to look at me the way you have been every time I laugh at a joke. Go on.
No eye contact. We'll get you blinders.
Honestly.
He then joins Claude Butler as a bicycle messenger and a member of the semi-professional racing team, where he begins his life of crime. Because bicycles, crime.
I mean,
Isn't that
As
like
one
the
does.
saddest form of like gang? Oh yes, what a bicycle gang with baskets in the front. That's
I'm
a
picturing
culture
those,
gun.
like, those huge bicycles with like the huge wheels, and they're like,
Yes.
Oh yeah, like a bicentennial
You
bike.
Yes!
This is 1960, not 1906.
but that's what I'm picturing.
You can't
Let
get
me
off that bike
have
by
this.
yourself.
Did you ever see? Sorry, go ahead. I'll talk about this later.
So they do some petty crime. He ends up spending time in HMNP, Wormwood Scrubs, and Borstal for theft. He escapes, gets caught, goes to Reading Prison. 6 weeks in there of the required 2 years. He moved to the National Service in the British Army, and then runs away again.
Can I ask a question? He escaped from a prison in England.
Yes,
Where are you gonna go? You can drive across the whole country in like 4 hours.
it's about 7, but yes.
But you know what I mean, though, right?
The
Like,
cops aren't going to look for you outside of
They
circumference.
still have jurisdictions, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, in France.
I'm more just like, ho, I've escaped. Like, where are you gonna go?
France.
You're on an
Birmingham.
island.
Have you asked Michael? You go to France.
You do go to France.
I don't like how quickly
Michael, you didn't
answered
mean
that.
to do that.
And I wasn't even a criminal. See how easy it is?
Yeah.
He didn't know how he got there.
He woke up there.
One can do it on accident.
I have.
So he's
No,
caught
I'm-
again, sentenced to 3 years in 1952 for breaking and entering. He goes to the juvenile wing of Wandsworth Prison in London. Then he graduates to jewelry theft from larger country houses, which is smarter because they're not there.
Right.
That makes sense, yeah.
I feel like you're
honestly.
way less likely to get caught in that
Well, yeah, you
situation.
They're
have-
more likely to notice when they come back, though. They're
That's
like, let
definitely
me
true.
wear my fancy inherited necklace. And they're like,
But by then,
Mom, it's gone.
you're gone for like a few months.
Yeah.
Honestly, that makes sense.
It's
It's a
gonna
much
take a
safer crime.
But they're rich enough that the police care.
They give a fuck because they're paying them. They're like,
Yeah.
here's an extra 20 pounds.
Tuppence.
Have some tea.
We're beyond the tuppence point.
I don't know anything about British people.
Our periodization is all over the place. I think it's because it's a train robbery. I keep wanting to think of it as
I
being
keep thinking
older.
Old West.
You're thinking Victorian train robbery.
Right. I need to get into like Austin Powers is like the
Yes.
time period.
In 1957, Reynolds was arrested together with Terry Hogan for assault and robbery of a bookmaker returning from the White City Greyhounds, aka with 500 pounds, and they
Really?
believed that it was like the intent of the Kosh attack was grievous bodily harm and not robbery, so they were just going to beat the shit out of him.
So if they just beat up a guy and then like, hey, here's 500 pounds in his wallet, let's take that too.
He's a bookie. A bookie.
Oh,
is a bookie.
okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So Hogan gets 2.5 years, and Reynolds he's a Houdini of prison. He's released in 1960s when he becomes an antique dealer and Google doesn't
Let's just
exist.
keep on going.
Honestly, antique dealer's kind of fun. You're like a character in Indiana Jones at that
Right.
point.
He then joins a gang with his future best friend Harry Booth and future brother-in-law John.
Aw.
Keep it in the. He works with Jimmy White and met Buster Edwards at Charlie Hub, who then Richardson introduces him to Gordon Goody, and he gets the name the crime name Napoleon in 1962 when his gang stole $62,000 in a security van robbery at London Heathrow.
Pretty good.
Not bad.
They then tried to rob a Royal Mail train at Swindon, which only got them 700 pounds.
Not so good.
No. You went from a lot of pounds to not a lot of pounds.
Can't win them all,
That's
right?
my dream.
He's looking for the next career-defining moment, and he begins to rob. And then we go to Douglas Gordon Goody, deputy organizer in Southwest. So this is the...
Got it. The Southwest.
So basically, the first
gang.
guy kind of attached to this gang, right?
Yeah, they're all attached, so they're all together.
Okay, I just mean like the first guy was more of an outsider, and then this is the gang. Am I misunderstanding?
They kind of form it together.
Okay,
They're
okay.
all, like,
They all come
friends.
together.
Yeah.
It'd be like a group of friends being like, "Oh, we're
Yeah.
all good at these set of
Yeah,
skills."
or like a group of people who do podcasts all together.
Who
Yeah.
does that?
Yeah, deciding to rob an armored car.
Why is it? So then we move to Ronald Buster Edwards.
Oh, what a daring nickname. Buster.
He left school.
I feel like this guy walks in and he's like 800 pounds and he's got fists the size of like ham hocks, and he's called Buster because he busts your
call
face
me
in.
Buster. I'm sorry.
So he leaves school, works at a sausage factory, where he begins his career in the criminal sphere by stealing meat to sell on the post-war black market. Again, rationing.
Right.
Honestly,
Sausage
I'm not gonna lie. That sounds fun. That sounds like a great job.
Oh, that had to stink so bad.
No, I mean like selling black market meat. I don't know why that sounds like
Do you want some long pig? Some long pig for you?
Yeah.
Oh,
He then gets into the national service because war. Joining the RAF, where he was detained for stealing cigarettes. Most British of crimes.
Smuggling fags is a big problem in the Royal Air.
Do we
Really,
agree?
that's what set you off?
After that, Edwards returns to London, South London, where he runs a drinking club, becomes a professional criminal, marries in 1952. He was then involved with the theft of £62,000.
Can you back up to what a drink club is?
It's an unofficial bar.
Is it?
I bet it's where you buy beer and then sell it at a slightly higher cost in your
And so
basement.
everybody just...
Because prohibition wasn't a thing in the UK, so
Right,
it's just a club,
Okay.
and you just, instead of sit around and smoke cigarettes and read newspapers like a gentleman's club, you drink.
That's really British.
Sounds great.
Okay.
So the £62,000 would be approximately 1.3 million today from the Comet House, the headquarters of the British Overseas Airway Corporation, so the same crime Richardson, and he manages to win other. So like people were captured and arrested for that,
Yeah.
and they kind of knew who was involved, but they couldn't catch him. So really, if you think about it, it's a long game of image of Catch Me If You Can, the movie,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but with a train robbery.
I'm all on board.
Charlie Wilson.
My man.
My man.
So he actually started out with being childhood friends with Jimmy Hussey, Tommy Wisby, Bruce Reynolds, and Gordon.
Okay.
Some of our artists
He's already...
integrated from
He's already
childhood.
right.
He's all in.
Yeah. He met Edwards and the young driving enthusiasts, Mickey Ball and Roy James, and they took up car theft. He was in national service from 48 to 58, and he married in 55. He had 3 children. A lot of these people have like wives and families while they're doing this, which I'm.
Well, yeah, why else are you going to crime? You got to support that family.
He turned to crime early in life and basically spurned his father's like legitimate but low. I don't want to work in like
The mill?
The mill.
Why
yeah,
work in the
with my-
mill when I can sit there and steal cars, father?
Father.
Father, why?
He did actually work legitimately in his in-laws' grocery shop while he was also a thief, and he'd get into various gambling enterprises, off in jail. In the 1960s, he began to Bruce Reynolds, which I just imagine is like
The big
superheroes.
league.
Yeah. Like, suddenly you're cast in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah.
Just so you know, you're fighting Captain America.
He's also involved in the 62 robbery from Heathrow and the Royal Mail train robbery at Swinton. Joins in the plan of Robbie Biggs. Some of these people are quite, because it's so recent. They publish.
There's like a lot of info on these
There's
guys.
on some of them there's no info, and some of them there's so much info.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you wrote a book on your life after you ran from the cops and you've been living in Argentina? What?
That's
That's
great.
fucking-
Kind of the dream.
God,
You know
that sounds
what that is?
awesome.
You know what that is? That's some big dickin'.
Ronnie Biggs. At 18, he enlisted in the Royal Air Force, dishonorably discharged for desertion 2 years later after he broke into a local chemist shop, aka a farm. 1 month later, he's convicted of stealing a car, goes to prison, released, took part in the attempted robbery of a bookmaker office in Lambeth, South London.
Oh, big haul.
He's incarcerated at HMM Wandsworth, where he meets Reynolds. This is his third prison sentence, and he tries to go straight and gets trained as a carpenter. He's like, I'm done with this. I'm done going to prison.
He's going straight.
February 1960, he marries Swanage. Just like, God, not since my thesis I've seen so many fun
Right.
names. He needs money to deposit for a purchase of his house for his family and on the house of a train driver who's about to retire. So he has been previously identified as Stan Agate, or because of his old age, Old Pete, or Pop. No one knows his actual name.
I can't wait to get to that point.
That's such a weird thing for like the 1960s.
There's a lot of things we
I mean,
don't. don't know people we don't know their name of.
I know the 1960s aren't now, like, it's not a time where you can just kind of vanish off the map. Or, correction, now isn't a time you can vanish off the map like you could in the 60s, per se. But it's still weird to think of not knowing someone's name from the 60s.
I feel like
You
they
know
all
what I
just
mean?
agreed not to say names.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure that's it.
They were
Honestly,
just
they're
So if
all,
someone was caught, you knew you could say their name.
Right.
well, they're all professionals at this point. Like, honestly, it sounds like all of them have enough of a criminal record to where,
Yeah.
you have almost kind of a professional pride, like a professional code.
So he was the one who introduced Biggs to the train robbery plot. So he's like, well, I'm not going to be your blood.
Well, you gotta get that deposit for a house.
No,
I
you gotta
bought a
live
house,
that-
I get it.
Yeah.
So Reynolds gave Biggs the job of arranging for Agate to move the train after it had been waylaid. So basically after it had been stopped. We go to Roy James. He was the chief getaway driver, nicknamed Weasel.
Fun.
That's such a
Same.
shit nickname.
He also left...
No, we're calling you Weasel.
He would be the one who would leave fingerprints at their hideout and would be caught after a rooftop chase. So super fun.
It's like out of a movie.
I know.
Yeah, no, this is literally could be a movie. You're like,
Well,
this is not
hasn't
real.
it been a movie?
Yeah, there's a lot of pop culture.
Yeah.
He was also a silversmith and a proficient race car driver. And he,
Oh, wow.
What the
What the
heck?
fuck is this?
Who is this person leading a charmed life?
This Renaissance man.
Yes.
Fuck
He
this
was-
guy.
he's planning to use his money in new car technology.
Sorry, real quick. What's this guy's name again?
This is Roy John James.
He's my favorite. I'm gonna go ahead and say it right now. Unless someone else has like a really great background, Roy John James is my favorite.
Right.
Who is he?
Some international man of mystery who drives race cars and like-
Smith Silver.
like Paul Revere. He's a modern Paul Revere.
Yeah.
He's Paul Revere, but not
Wow.
Yeah, that we know of.
He could be, you know.
You know.
The crime.
Yeah.
Roger Corduroy. He's the train stopper and electronics expert. He was the leader of the South Coast Raiders. Tom Wisby. He's a bookie and self-confessed heavy.
What the fuck is that?
I feel like that's someone that's just like, I don't have like a full feeder.
Hello,
finger
lads. I'm
complex.
the heavy.
Or like he's like the heavy.
Mince pie enthusiast.
I will say,
He's me.
between watching and playing Love Island, I don't know a fuck about British slang.
I
I'm
feel
gonna
like,
go ahead and say it.
I feel
I
like
don't know
heavy would
anything.
be like he's security, like
I would imagine
Right.
so.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes sense. I'm just saying it's also
He's the
good.
big guy that shows up and hits
It's
people.
fucking
Yeah.
silly.
because it was his job to frighten the train staff.
There you go.
We have
Yeah.
Jim Hussey, who's the muscle in South Coast.
The
Raiders.
seductress.
What, Jake? What?
We have Bob Welch, who helped organize and provided muscle, and he's also from the South Coast Raiders. Brian Field, he served 2 years in the Royal Army Service Corps, serving in Korea. He's discharged, and it was with a very good character.
Oh,
So
She
British.
says in air quotes.
That is.
It
You're right.
was
That's,
put in air
no,
quotes.
you're right. That's very British.
It's very British.
He was a good lad. Top.
Punctual.
He's 18 when the war is over, and he's very successful personal and professionally. He gets married to a German girl. He becomes a solicitor's managing clerk for John Weider & Co. Was 28 at the time of the robbery, and he already... So, Field was 28 at the time of the robbery. He was already more successful than his boss, John Weider.
That's a good place to
Yeah,
be.
fuck yeah. Good for you.
He drove a new Jaguar, had a house he
Ooh.
called Cabri, which was an anagram of his wife and his name.
Oh.
Karen.
Someday I hope to make enough money to name a house.
And this was it. Bridle Path Whitchurch in Oxfordshire, near Pangbourne, while his boss owned a battered Ford and lived in a rundown neighborhood.
That's
Maybe.
awesome. That's the best revenge I can think of.
Sure thing, John. I'll go get your cappuccino.
Well, no,
You know what?
it's,
Maybe he's like Jimmy, or not, who owns Billionaire out of Omaha.
no.
Shit.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. Jack Welch.
No.
No?
I've got no clue. Warren Buffett?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
I was
wow,
gonna
that was
say-
a guess.
I was gonna say Jimmy Buffett. I was like, that is not correct.
Jimmy Buffett.
But he owns the same house he bought. It's like a simple colonial.
Yep.
His kids had to convince him to buy a new car.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, that's great.
Field was not against giving some of his clients, or less savory clients, good information on what some of his wealthier clients had in their country houses, aka being like, hey thieves, they got some good shit over there. They're not going to be home in 2 weeks.
So he's a snitch. But,
Yeah.
like, not necessarily in a bad way. It's just, he gives people leads.
Yeah.
Did you say not in a bad way.
He sells information.
Yeah, I think that you can be a snitch and not have it be bad necessarily. You can also be a snitch and be a rat, like a rat bastard.
Yeah. He's basically a crooked solicitor, crooked lawyer.
Yeah.
And for the crew, they're like, hey, he could arrange alibis, witness statements, bribe police and witnesses, so everything.
This guy's my favorite.
Is it the same guy as before?
No, that was the race car driver. The crooked lawyer's now my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's the managing clerk in his law firm, he's able to do this out without like raising any alarms. And he actually at one occasion described the contents and layout of a house near Weybridge where his wife, Karen, had once been a nanny to a couple of criminals that he represented at various times in his career, which would be Gordon Goody and Buster Edwards. So he's like, oh yeah, I know these guys. Like everyone's connected.
Well, yeah, it sounds...
There's already a web there.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it sounds like there's a, what's a good way to say it? They're all fishing the same pond.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's kind of one of those things, if you don't know someone directly, you know a guy who
They all
knows
run
them.
in the same circles.
Yeah.
So he actually arranged Buster's defense when he had been caught with a stolen car and would later meet Goody at a nightclub in Soho. He was called upon to assist in the defense of Goody in the aftermath of the airport job, which was the 1962 robbery. And this really interesting was the practice,
Oh, that's fun.
which they failed at.
Oh.
They did a dry
That's
run?
that was the $700 one.
Oh,
Or wait,
really?
I believe that was the
Okay, not. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt here, but to ask a legitimate question.
Oh no, that's a successful one. That was a 62,000. The
Okay.
mail train at Swindon.
That was the failure. I said, if you're doing a job where, like, a failure can end in you being arrested, why would you try a dry run?
You try a dry run at a similar kind of security base, but different.
But I mean, if you fail, you end up in jail for a few years. Like, if you fail, it messes the whole thing up.
But then you have a few years to plan.
I don't know.
I don't know. I disagree, but I'm not a professional criminal.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. You have to also think it's the 60s, so less surveillance and less
Back when
checking
people were free.
to beat their wives and punch strangers.
God, we should be so
wow.
lucky.
So he also arranged bail for Goody and Charlie Wilson. So he's really crucial because he's that like legitimate guy. So they're like, we got this lawyer.
He's your real connection.
He saw in Breaking Bad. You need a criminal lawyer.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he would also arrange the informants who knew the details. And he also would arrange the escape with the loot and purchasing hideouts in at Leather Slade Farm and was entrusted. Cool. Leonard Field was also helped with the purchase of Leather Slade Farm, which was the hideout. And he thought the plan was to hijack a lorry or a truckload of cigarettes.
Uh-huh.
That if
Go ahead,
anyone's
Michael, say
watched,
what you were going to say.
No.
I just love if you watch Peaky Blinders, stealing cigarettes was a
It was like a whole industry.
Honestly, legitimately, it was very, very profitable.
It was lucrative.
Yeah.
Jimmy White, he was a former paratrooper known as the quartermaster. So William Bull.
It's like all of these soldiers came back from the war and then looked
Well,
at their
I mean-
prospects
and goes, well, I'm fucked.
It's almost like what happens every time you have a society that comes back from a war and then suddenly doesn't have a lot of jobs for ex-soldiers.
Right.
What else are they going to do?
They have PTSD and they need to act
and they've
it
got
out.
a certain set of skills
Exactly.
that lend themselves to this
To
kind of activity.
Potentially crime or at least violence.
So Bull is an accomplice of Roger Corddry, the Ulsterman, who we
Oh, that's fun.
Michael and I both like fans of Irish history, both hear Ulsterman and go, ugh.
So apparently his identity has come out. It's still like, I think it was like at the Guardian or Daily Mail. So I'm just like,
Who knows?
Also, all the fact is, all of them are getting older at this point, so it's like memory
Right.
comes into effect.
Yeah.
He would be a key informant and organizer, and John Daly, another train stopper, brother-in-law of Reynolds and Associates. They also had accomplices known as Mr. 1, Mr. 2, Mr. 3. Peter brought in to drive the train, which was John Weeder, who secured the safety.
Is this Reservoir Dogs yet? Sorry, I'm
There's too many people.
Mr. 1, Mr. 2, Mr. 3,
Yeah.
Mr. Pink, Mr. Blue, Mr. White.
Right.
I think we're like, by the end of it, there's like 15 people plus accomplices, so it gets around
Yeah,
20.
which makes sense.
It's a train. Who needs
It's a
some people?
train. It's a
Yeah.
This is a big job.
Yeah.
Mhm. So
They didn't call it the average train.
no, and we really don't know who had the idea first, but Bruce Reynolds is known to be the mastermind, and that is who Luke Evans plays here. It doesn't have great ratings, and I loved
But it's
it.
got Luke Evans.
Hey,
I loved it. I thought it was really clever how they filmed it, like the crime. So you get the crime drama, and then
Yeah.
you get the police drama after it.
hey,
And I love Jim Brent too.
you enjoy what you enjoy. There's nothing wrong with that.
So he assembles his crew in 1962. He starts with his own men, the Southwest Gang, choosing gang members Gordy Goody, a London hairdresser and part-time thief, to be his number 2. They worked out details, and they're like, hey, we don't have enough people. Let's get more people. That's how
we get the Ocean's 11 montage
Yeah,
scene of
basically.
them getting in the rest of the group.
So they decided grabbing former boxer turned nightclub owner Buster Edwards' Southeast gang, and it's like, okay, we got 2 gangs together. We can do a robbery. They obtain the train's details, its scheduled amount of cash it would be carrying, the car it would be on, and the number of workers. You know, most of these crimes, they don't want to kill anyone because that's a worse crime.
Yeah,
Suddenly
it becomes a much bigger issue if you kill some.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. They're going to look for you a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Especially because it's going to be a federal in the sense.
Yeah.
So they were like, hey, bank holiday, any holiday, a lot more bars, spend more money.
It makes sense. There's probably less people present. Yeah.
And,
it
and
makes
more
total
money
sense.
being
And
spent,
more
so they're
for
going
the
to
tip.
send it back down to the Bank of London.
Yep.
So they realized on August 5th, 1963, he tapped into an insider who would be known as the Ulsterman to find out the day the train would be carrying that cash to London. So the Ulsterman is the key info person that we still don't really know who it was.
Yeah, just that he's...
That's just the nickname they gave him. He could have been like from southern London.
Yeah,
that would
who
be the
knows?
best like cover.
Right.
Be like,
Oh, here's Northern Ireland over here. And he's like, yeah, totally. Just
I had tea with the
And
king the other day.
And over here is Boston. Yeah, sure, I come from Boston. Like with a southern
For
accent.
sure, brother.
I do declare they call me the North Dakotan.
Michael knows what I was going for.
So he's got men, information, and the date. One problem: how do you stop a train?
Dynamite.
I was gonna say yeah.
But you need to move it so it's not stuck on the track, so people don't realize it's.
You put someone in front of the track. Sorry, everyone. I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption.
You get a really dastardly mustache, right? And then you take a really
going the
hot...
Snidely Whiplash route.
Yeah, you take a really hot blonde Southern woman, right? And you tie her up.
You mean you?
Real good. I'm not Southern.
You're from Kentucky.
You're Kentucky. You're Southern enough.
Oh, Lordy be. I do declare. No, I'm talking about what's the like Penelope Pit Stop level.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tie her to the trail, like the
you
train
could
tracks.
purchase 7,000 donkeys.
Are we just doing a thing here? Are we just going to throw out ideas until we get tired?
Courtney, how do you steal a train?
Or stop a train?
So Roger Corduroy actually came up with the answer. So you have stoplights as you drive cars that do like red.
Yep.
Okay.
And trains also have signals. To stop, green means go, amber means slow down, red means stop. And he was like, why don't we just fix?
Honestly, you know what? That makes a lot of
Sneaky.
sense. You
Yeah.
just kind of co-opt like someone's desire
Yep.
to just do their jobs.
Yep.
Shit, that's really clever, honestly.
How did they fix that? I'm doing air quotes too.
I'm going to say not well.
By paying someone.
No.
Oh.
Using black paper and leather gloves, he would cover the green signals at their chosen spots. And using battery and wire, he would turn on a red signal.
Oh, that's fun.
I feel correct when I say not well.
Yeah.
Actually, really
I mean,
well.
if it works.
It did well enough, but I
But
bet it
now
didn't
you
work.
couldn't do that. But in the 60s, fucking the
You-
wires were probably
if they're-
open. They
if
could
they're-
You
poke
can do
them.
a lot of stuff
Right.
in the 60s.
If it was far enough away, it looked good.
So they have their day, they have their time, they have their way to stop the train. So they lay low at Leather Slade Farm, their safe house, drinking beer and playing Monopoly, waiting for the time to come.
I mean, don't we all?
Did this end with them like killing each other over the game of Monopoly?
Weirdly, no, but Monopoly comes back up.
Oh.
Huh.
Jesus.
Doesn't it always?
So they review their plan over and over. They leave at midnight. They were planning to pretend to be a army unit on night maneuvers, which is fair. We're Cold
Sure.
War.
Yeah.
They had army vehicles, uniforms, fake official papers in order to look the part. At 10 p.m., they got word from the Ulsterman that the money is on its way. So in the early hours, so like it was around 3 a.m., they loaded the vehicles and they head out to Leighton Buzzard Bridge. At the distant signal, they drop off John Daly, Roger Corduroy to take care of the signals and continue on to Verdago Bridge, where they don blue overalls and to mask their army uniforms. They split up and they had like posts. Literally Ocean's 11, but with a train.
Right.
In the 60s.
And less technology.
And British people.
Yeah.
Bad teeth.
They actually surprisingly looking at the pictures, not that bad of teeth.
I don't believe that.
I have pictures. They take tape across the track to indicate where the train was to be stopped for unloading. They cut the phone lines to call out. They cut the overhead phone lines that service the district. And it's at 3 a.m. when the trains coming to the site. Using a portable radio, Reynolds gives the word, the false signals was activated, the train slows, pulls up to where, basically imagine, they see the signal, it pulls up right to where the tape is, and they're like, well, huh?
Hello!
Almost Robert.
The really fucking wonderful train ride.
Absolutely top.
The train's fireman got out of the cabin, made his way to the emergency call box to phone ahead. It's dead. He turns back to the train and is like, person! It's Buster Edwards in overalls next to the train tracks. And he assumes, he's in overalls. He's a line worker. And he walks towards him. He's overpowered by two accomplices in balaclavas.
Balaclavas?
You do that real well, Mike.
Thank you.
They pushed him down into an embankment where he's handcuffed. Number 3, the burliest of the gang, entered the cabin. Jack Driver was startled being confronted, tried to resist.
But which one's the handsome one and which one's the bad?
Who's Luke Evans playing?
He's the mastermind of all of this. He organized all of this. The driver was hit on the head, sustained a more serious injury when he fell against the side of the cab. He's dragged away and replaced by gang members. Mills is under threat of more beating. He's required to release a vacuum brake that prevented the train from being moved after it had been uncoupled from the mail car. So they're trying to separate.
Right.
Yeah.
Postal workers in the High Valley coach were alerted by the sound of the uncoupling, but before they could do anything, the gang smashed into that coach and began overpowering. You're just mail workers. You're just
That
postal
sucks.
workers.
That's so shit.
I just saw
On a holiday. They're working on a holiday. They're getting the shit beat out of them by
They got
a gang.
the shit shift. They're working as it crosses, in the middle of
at
the night.
3 a.m.
You wouldn't even have to beat me. I'd just
be like, take it. It's yours. Whatever. I'll get paid regardless.
It's insured, guys. It's insured. So they're bound, gagged, and left laying face down as the gang begins unloading everything.
This is the worst day ever for these guys. It was already terrible.
I like the fact that they still fought, though. They're like, for queen and country. Have at them, lads.
And
give me liberty or give me letter openers.
No, they're British. I wouldn't say that.
It wouldn't work.
So they did a human chain to get all of the money out into the trucks. It only took 40 minutes.
Honestly, it's not bad.
No! If you think about it, their money's heavy.
Like the number
ton
of
of
people
stuff.
and the logistics involved.
Well, also it's the fact that they don't know what's money and what's not, right?
Mhm.
So they're moving just everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad at all.
No,
I'd
they're
take
just throwing
that.
bags around.
So they left 7 mail bags behind in the coach. They made their getaway. Total, it took 3 hours to unload the bag and view the spoil. 2,631,784 pounds.
That's a lot of
I'm not gonna lie, I can't think of many crimes I wouldn't commit to get that much money now. I
Exactly.
have so much debt.
So remember, they committed the crime starting at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
At 5 a.m., Chief Superintendent Maxwell Fetrell, head of the Buckinghamshire Police Criminal Investigation, located Aylesbury, arrived at the crime scene, and he was like, let's get that Evans up, bitches. He then goes to Cheddington Station, where the train had been taken after, and he gets to see postal workers and the driver, and a member from the gang had actually told the workers not to move for half an hour and suggested that their hideout could not be more than 30 miles or...
Just don't talk. Just don't say anything.
Well, you don't want them to move right away when you leave, so if you tell them to wait 30 minutes, I would assume you could drive further than that. So
yeah, I don't know.
probably they're like, that would be how long it would take us. You could keep driving.
Yeah. It's
What's
just,
going to
I
stop
don't know.
you?
Right.
They figured out that it was about 15 hooded men dressed in blue boiler suits were involved, but not much more. Determined by lunchtime the following day, it became obvious to Fetrell that I need more resources. He's like this.
Right.
Because Buckinghamshire is kind of more country.
It's isolated.
Yeah, it's like a sheriff handling like a major crime.
Yeah. And we don't want to pull a lot of those things where people go back and look and like, hey, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
So he was like, you know what? Let's call Scotland Yard. Always. He gets a hold of George Hathrill, commander of the C Department, and Detective Chief Superintendent Ernest Mullen, head of the flying squad. So they were going to take over the London side. Specifically, Tommy Butler, who the Professor
Slughorn.
Yeah.
that guy plays. Jim Brent plays.
Okay.
He's known as the Thief Chief.
Take a.
What a good
Sexy.
name.
Why do we not have great names like this
Seriously.
It's because we don't have fun and imagination anymore in the government.
anymore? So
There's no sense of wonder.
Or if we do, we've hidden it so deep in the CIA that we just don't...
The bureaucracy.
Yeah, no one gets to know about it until 30 years later when they write their book.
and we all cry.
Oh, well.
So he was put really in charge of the Great Train Robbery, pretty much the renowned head of the flying squad in its history, which the flying squad was like high petty theft bring with it.
It sounds like the coolest name for the least cool force. The flying squad for petty theft.
The
Well, it's more like
anti-pickpockets.
It started off as that, but then it became more like white collar crime, big like.
Okay, so
big.
it grew,
Yeah.
but initially it was just petty crime.
So it's just like a scrappy bunch of investigators.
They had a big problem with theft in London, so they were like they would go around in a carriage and just like watch and make sure people wouldn't steal things, and then catch them and basically throw them in the black carriage, and they would go away.
Not to be an American about it, you said a carriage. Do you really mean a horse-drawn carriage?
Yeah, it started that long ago. It started.
It started a long time ago. Was it like 1960s?
No,
Quickly, get the carriage.
It started before cars were a thing.
Okay. I was just initially like, what are they
popular,
doing?
like affordable.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. No, no, that's a good question because like the fact that police have cars now.
It's pretty new.
Yeah. So he was known as Mr. Flying Squad, One Day Tommy, for the speed which he would apprehend criminals. Gray Fox for his shoot us.
Oh, was it because he was old and hot?
I just love that he has so many names like Thief Taker, Mr. Flying Squad, One Day Tommy, Gray Fox.
Running tab with his local bar.
He walks in, they're like, never mind.
Yeah.
Who's the guy? Oh, sorry.
And because he was unmarried and lived with his mother, he pretty much just worked all the time.
What's this other
Listen,
nickname,
bitch,
nerd?
you ain't special. Me
Loser.
too.
He would work long hours and pretty much expected everyone else to do the same. They basically figured out a way to do rotations where one member would go home to rest. Otherwise, they were only getting 3 hours of sleep per night.
Jeez.
No time to eat healthily or see them if they didn't figure out the schedule.
Why? All right.
Because Tommy really loves to work.
Good for Tommy.
But everyone else didn't get a chance.
Yes, he sucks for everyone else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When the squad was like, hey, maybe we should see our families occasionally. Maybe we should have a salad.
Tommy said, pussies.
Basically. And he's like, do you want to go back on the beat? And they're like, never mind. No, we're good. Because it's really prestigious to be on the police unit. Yeah. He was also very secretive with Jack Slipper claiming in his book, Slipper of the Yard, which came out in 19...
Pretty good. It's fun.
Yeah.
Quote, he wouldn't even tell his own left hand what the right one was doing.
This guy sounds like an awful boss.
Sounds like he's really type A.
He sounds like one of those obnoxious geniuses that's like gonna be remembered in history, but no one liked him when he was alive.
A Benedict Cumberbatch character?
What?
That is actually most of the characters he plays, where people are like, look at how great this person was, and then you're like, no one liked him.
Yeah, everyone thought he was a dick.
So basically, because of the secrecy, everyone was dispatched to tasks, but they have no idea how everything fits together. So great. So they could have picked up additional information, but they're like...
They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So the robbery squad is a 6-man team consisting of detective investigator Frank Williams, Detective Sergeant Steve Moore, Detective Sergeant Jack Slipper, Detective Sergeant Jim Neville, Louis Van Dyke, and Tommy Thornburn, as well as Tommy Butler. And the senior officer was Frank Williams, so basically... They're trying to orchestrate everyone.
Is not near where the crime happened.
No, not. So there's also a post office investigation because
the post office.
It's technically
involved.
its own thing.
Yeah, I always love the fact that the post office investigates things.
They're a branch of the government, baby.
So they were the one tasked with establishing the amount of money stolen, and they concluded it was £2,595,987 pounds, 10 shillings.
Gotta keep track of those.
They're
shillings.
British, of course they would. In fairness, we would too.
Oh.
At least we didn't have to get down to pence because there was no pence. So. And it was really, they need to identify what money was stolen so they could basics. Everything in this car was reported and secured, brought to service. So just think of like how they probably knew the rate note. So if it pops up, they're going to be like,
they know where to look.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey, this banknote is suddenly in circulation.
And then they were like, hey, maybe we should install radios in our, like, cars, our train cars. On top of it, they sent from the post office Detective Superintendent Gerald MacArthur and Detective Sergeant John Pritchard to assist the bucket. They start with a major search, fanning out from the crime scene after failing to find any forensic evidence there. They put a watch on seaports, which at that point, they could have driven the channel wasn't there, but they could have had a boat waiting to get them across.
Yeah, they could be
honestly,
anywhere by
this isn't like the United States where your options by boat are somewhat limited. Britain, you could have just like had a guy with a fishing trawler waiting and you could have gotten to the continent.
Yeah, pretty.
Yeah.
The Postmaster General Reginald Bevins offered a £10,000 reward for the first person giving information conviction of the persons responsible. So they started off with a pretty solid plan. On top of it, the gangs original plan was to stay at the farmhouse for 2 weeks. So they're like, we're just going to lay low.
Sure.
Let
Stay
everything
quiet.
Which works most of the time if you just stay put out of sight,
you
out
just
of
don't
mind.
make any
spend
noise.
any money.
Yep.
Yeah. However, the police broadcast announcing their escapade and the revelations, and that every newspaper in the land is now looking for them and reporting on this shit. They're like, oh fuck, we gotta go.
They
So
got
they panic.
spooked.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So they leave in a new transport. They have an unknown accomplice paid to clean the farmhouse of all evidence.
They just burn it down.
That
Yeah.
would have been better.
Like, honestly, yeah.
So, a suspicious vehicle was reported at an old farmhouse about 30 miles from the crime scene, which would be Letterstead Farm. And it was in there, they found food, sleeping bags, bedding, banknote wrappers, post office sacks.
Wow, that guy did a crap job.
Did he even show up?
I guarantee you he didn't. He took a paycheck and said bye
Suckers.
Guess where they found fingerprints?
everywhere.
On the
On
toilet.
everything.
Bottle of ketchup and the Monopoly.
Wah,
This is
wah.
stupid.
Wow.
These people deserve to go to
And
jail.
they used some of the £1, £5, and £10 notes they had stolen for the Monopoly.
Oh my lord.
If you have $2 million and change
You're
sitting
feeling cocky with the Monopoly game.
and that's only 8 days after the robbery that they find the safe house.
I mean, after 8 days, I would be bored enough that I would be playing Monopoly.
I'll be honest, I'm actually shocked it took that.
60s.
But still, like, that seems a very long time. But you're
Yeah.
right.
So, within a day of the discovery, they were like, hey, Roger Cordery, fingerprints number 1.
Ding.
He was with his friend William Bull, who was helping him lie low in return for a payment of old debt. So they were living in a rented, fully furnished flat above a florist shop in Wimborne Road, Bournemouth.
Okay.
You just made those up.
They were tipped off by
Someone's grandpa had a stroke and they just named it that.
a police widow, Ethel Clark, who they paid for rent in the garage 3 months in advance, and they used 10-shilling notes. That's weird.
Yeah.
Even though Bull was not involved in the robbery, he was sentenced to 24 years and died in.
Oh,
Wow.
poor
Wow.
dumb bastard.
Mhm. Later on, they would acknowledge him that he was a victim of. So they did acknowledge, like, hey, we fucked up.
Well, boy, that sure helped him.
I'm sure he felt way better about the situation.
Yeah.
His spirit stopped haunting the police station.
Did it?
I'm sure it didn't.
No, it now just haunts
The
the
prison.
descendants of the police officers.
Of the prisoners that raped. Oh,
I was going with the police
You
officers.
went a bit darker with that.
I did.
So within a week of that, Charlie Wilson was arrested in London, and the police were onto Bruce Reynolds, Jimmy White, Roy James, and Buster Edwards.
So it's all starting to kind of
Honestly, at
unravel.
this point, like, get out of the country. Like, honestly, at this point, just run.
If you're one of the guys that has access to the big bulk of the money,
Get out.
Get
Yeah.
on a boat.
You've got the money.
Fly
Get
cotton
out.
And,
get a plane, whatever.
I wouldn't do a plane because they would check the planes. They'd check.
I don't know where.
I have
Sorry,
no
never mind.
idea.
I don't know
If you
enough
get
about
in
this.
like a big car carrier or something like that, get there across the ocean.
Sure.
It's harder to check. So Big's fingerprints were found on the bottle of ketchup, and he's arrested September 4th. So like literally almost a month later.
Yeah.
He joins Charlie Wilson, Tommy Wisby, Jim Hussey, Bob Welch in Bedford prison to await trial. And at that time, they learned that Goody had been arrested or had been questioned, but was let go because of insufficient evidence.
Woo.
Suckers.
Several
Oh, that
weeks
must
later,
feel so good.
feels so good. But several weeks later, he too was arrested and
God
charged.
damn it.
That must feel so bad.
So after 2 months of being at Bedford, Biggs was planning an escape
Good for him.
but he had to wait as they were transferred to Amesbury prison tight security because they're like, hey, this guy likes to escape.
They
We're-
connected the dots.
Yeah,
Oh,
he kept
shoot.
fucking escaping, so they're like, oh. They at that time they learned the evidence again really fucking strong, and Biggs was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here, and starts plotting. He was foiled when one of his friends got cold feet. Again, trust no one.
Trust no one. Leave everyone behind.
Get
Audience.
on a boat.
Learn the lesson.
By December of that year, John Weeder, Brian Phillips, John Daly, and Roy James were arrested. James actually had a beautiful, like, that cinematic chase across neighborhood rooftops before his capture, and Reynolds manages to evade arrest. Still, they had planned, the gang that was in Amesbury prison plans to escape, but they were watched really closely until their trial began. In January 20th, 1964, they appeared Justice Edmund Davis at a Buckinghamshire Assizes. This would be Ronnie Biggs, Tommy Wisby, Charlie Wilson, Roy James, Bob Welch, Gordon Goody, Leonard Field, Brian Field, William Bull, and John Weeder all pleaded not guilty. It's about 10 dudes.
Well, I know I didn't do it.
That's great.
Well,
I like that you all watched me take a breath before I said.
Yeah, the laundry list of people.
Brian Cordry was the only man to plead guilty and gave back his share of money, which was about $80,000.
All right.
So what happened to him?
2 weeks into trial, it surfaced that Briggs had a criminal record, and they were like, this is going to deal with the jury. We're going to halt the trial and order them to separate. This trial goes on for months, includes testimony from bank officers. The train driver, Jack Mills, told the story of the robbery. His was so severe that he had, remember, he hit his head too on top of it. So they knocked him over and then he hit his head. So brain injuries.
Woo.
Not fun.
No.
No
John
bueno.
Daly, who was implicated because his fingerprints were found on the Monopoly game. I just love that this Monopoly game that they played while they waited comes back into play.
Think about how much that must haunt them. Like, one of them must be sitting there going like, this stupid game I didn't even want to play that night. Someone talk me.
Yep.
He was acquitted during the defense proceedings in March 4. His lawyers said that his fingerprints could have been on the game prior to the farm. It could have been a set that someone borrowed and
Sure.
what happened there.
Jury didn't buy it.
Wait, so he was acquitted?
Yeah.
Wait, really? He got off
Fuck
on that?
yeah!
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry, that's great. I love that.
On March 25th, 1964, the jury found all of the accused guilty of conspiracy to rob. So that's Tom Wisby, Roy James, Charlie Wilson, Bob Bell, Jim Hussey, and Gordon Goody. So that's 6 men of robbery with violence.
Honestly, 6 out of 15 is not bad.
No, not by any means.
Sentencing would be down until Biggs' trial, which was rescheduled. We need to separate him. His retrial only took 7 days, and they were like, "Yeah, you hella guilty."
This is not going to go well for you.
No. On April 16, 64, the sentences were handed down by Justice, who was heavy hands of the violence.
Sounds like an opportunity to make an example of some people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Each man received 30 years. John Weeder, who arranged the safe house, received 3 years. Robert Corduroy received 20 years. Said, I did it. Here's the money.
Yeah.
I fucked up. William Bull received 24. Brian and Leonard Field 5. After appeals, Corduroy and Bull sentenced to 14 years each. And
Good for
Well,
them.
that's so nice.
Yeah. And Brian and Leonard Field each had their sentences reduced to 5 years. So they have, like, decent lawyers. Remember we said...
Yeah, I was going to say, honestly, that isn't as awful as I was expecting.
Yeah. So Buster Edwards, Bruce Reynolds, and Jimmy White were all found and jailed by 19... Edwards had fled to Mexico, but turned himself in 3 years after the crime.
Why would you do that? No, stay in Mexico, have a great time.
After 5 years on the run, Mastermind Reynolds, a.k.a. Luke, was captured and sentenced to 10 years in prison. And they were placed in prisons across the country because, like, hey...
They didn't want all of them together.
You should not put this group...
Clearly, these guys cooperate.
They're the perfect group project group, and we don't want them together.
Right.
Well, it's...
1964, Charlie Wilson, who was incarcerated at Winston Green Maximum Security Prison, was the first of the gang to escape. He was recaptured 4 years later.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's an impressive run.
Seriously.
He liked to fucking escape. There was a girl that, like...
4 years on the run is really impressive.
Right.
Biggs was sent to Wandsworth Prison, aka British Alcatraz. After 15 months of being there, he escaped in a furniture van and was notorious. He underwent plastic surgery to disguise his face.
wow.
Fled to Australia, then Brazil, where he settled in 19...
He's really going for it.
He's like, if I'm gonna fucking escape, I'm gonna do
This
it
guy's fucking great.
He loves escaping. The people who actually escaped have escaped before, so they're like... Fuck,
They're
I don't-
good at it. They know what to do.
He's in Brazil in the 1970s, where he settled as Michael Haynes. He evaded return to the UK for more than 3 decades, despite attempts to extradite him.
Oh, so they even know he's there.
That's so much better.
He just sends. I would just send a photocopy of my
like a
ass to the
postcard.
British government every week.
Send it to Scotland Yard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
He would be a great person to just do an episode on him.
Seriously.
Fun.
Once in 1974, when Slipper showed up, so member of the flying squad, at his door. So he shows up and he's like, "Fuck no, bitch! I'm in Brazil."
Wait, so one guy
You want
came,
tea? Come sit down. You can't
one guy
do anything.
came to his house in Brazil.
Oh, Brazil in the like in this period. Fuck Latin America in this period. Like, unless you're buddies with the country, like
Yeah, no.
You're not going back.
That's the
They
best
got enough
thing.
Nazis running around that
Think
they're not
about-
extraditing anybody.
Yeah, think about how great that must be. Your like mortal enemy comes to your house. They can't do shit to you. Oh my god, that's great.
You just sit on
That's
your
so
front
much
porch.
fun. You have tea with them and they can't touch you.
Yeah.
Well, think about how they got Eichmann back. They literally had to abduct
abducted
the shit
him.
out of him. Yeah.
You had to Black Ops this guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And in
I love it.
1981, they had a kidnapping attempt by an ex-military. In 2001, Biggs, who basically almost got away with it, returned to the UK voluntarily
God damn it.
Why?
because he was old as fuck.
At that point,
Oh,
just stay in
so?
Brazil.
Yeah.
Have a great time in
Well,
Brazil.
Do whatever. Go anywhere.
So he's like, well, also there's this. He's like, he's gonna serve out the remaining 28 years of his sentence in a Norwich jail for elderly inmates. So it's probably dangerous.
So it's just a retirement home.
Yeah, it's insane. We know
He
you're
ran out of
justice.
money and just decided to take.
Oh, the government take care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he outlived his rival. Jack Slip passed away in 2005. So he's like, motherfucker.
God, this guy's the best.
You can go see the Monopoly game on display at the Thames Valley.
Wow.
That's awesome. God, that's great.
Oh, what a great time.
And that's the Great Train
I
Robbery.
love it. It's so much fun. I
Greater for
love
some
that
than
guy.
others.
Greater
Yeah,
for Biggs. He
obviously.
was just like, hey, motherfucker.
He got to spend 30 plus years in Brazil, living the time of his life, and then went back on his own terms. God, I love it. That's
he
awesome.
really won.
If I didn't have to restrict it for time, I would have looked up like the people trying to bring him back because there's another time. Plus, he was almost kidnapped and all that.
That's awesome. That's so much
Oh,
fun.
what a good time.
Some of the guys have written autobiographies. Like, you can definitely go look them up more. But it's such a crazy thing. And I watched the BBC show and I was just like, fuck.
Yeah,
It's
this is
such a
nuts.
weirdly
It's-
ridiculous crime.
It feels so, like, especially the period that it's taking place in, it feels so out of
anachronistic.
time.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like, well,
Like a train robbery.
yeah,
Yeah.
I say train robbery, my mind immediately goes to 1880s,
Right.
90s, something
Cowboys.
like that.
Yeah, and like
That's awesome. I love it.
And the fact that they got away with so much, they really didn't kill anyone.
Yeah, honestly,
It was a
I'm not
kind
going
of,
to say it's a victimless crime.
but it's a well executed one.
They did it. Yeah, I recommend watching the series. I think it's really good just the way they had set it up, too, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's like a caper and then a police documentary
Yeah.
with great actors.
You get
great-
both sides of the story.
Well, it's
And it's only like, I think, max 3 hours.
the only person that got hurt was the government, and we don't care about them.
Says the American.
And
The
it's
British
British
government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was involved in the Crown, because
I have no idea.
that would be really interesting if you just saw them like
like a
opening up.
crossover.
A newspaper in there.
And
Right.
there it is, because like that's
Oh,
a
I
lot of money
say.
for them to lose.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Well, cool.
like was it 2 million?
Yeah.
Yeah, over 2 million got taken. So
Yeah.
and they didn't get all of it back.
Right.
Ugh.
A few of them got away with it. God, that's great. Yeah, and we're Drunk Thunks. We're at Facebook or Gmail at drunkthunks@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at dthunks at Twitter. I don't know what else is there.
Yeah, well, we have an Instagram page, and we
Yeah,
do podcasts about just all of the horrible things that happen in history. And
Basically, we talk about anything in history that we think is entertaining.
yeah,
Well,
so
you get drunk.
Yeah,
Or-
listen
yeah.
to us if you want to, have a drink with your friends and chat about history, because that's kind of about the closest to what we do. Is like, cool.
Cool.
All right.
Love it.
Well, thank you. I love you.
thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Love you
Bye.
more.
Oh wait, am I like all of yours first?
Hey, everyone, I'm Michael.
I'm Brittany.
And I'm Jake.
And together we are the hosts of Drunk Thunks, a new comedy history podcast where we drink and share stories from history.
If you're the kind of person who likes to drink and chat history with your friends, we are the podcast for you.
You can find us on all major podcast platforms and on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Drunk Thunks. We hope you'll stop by soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The Evidence Locker is a weekly podcast about international true crime. Made by hardcore true crime fans, it's somewhat grungy. Join us as we explore the dark corners of the globe. We've covered cases from Sweden, Brazil, Australia, and the US, to mention a few. Find us on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Of Domesticity. We're available on all podcatchers. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to help spread the word, or just force other people to listen to it. Our Facebook and Twitter are at Domestic Podcast, and our Instagram is at the Cult of Domesticity. We also have podcast merch at Threadless. As well, if you want to support us financially or show some appreciation, we have a PayPal tip jar and a Patreon, which has some pretty great perks. Any topic suggestions, feel free to email us at domesticpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to
stay domestic and cult free.